The same thing applies. We do have outside people reviewing the information with city staff.
So the work the city did, staff on this pre-application, EDA has to pay them out of the $200?
I just have another question, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
If we would determine that we were going to give them, you know, after the full 5,000 and that stuff, just trying to ask a question, that we would subsidize a portion. In other words, you know, they want 500. Let's just say that we decided to give them 500, but we don't want to do it at half. Is that a possibility? In other words, if it came up with 30,000 whatever tax, could we say we want to pay it back at 15,000, half of that?
Also, we provided all the options available
Okay.
to them. You can choose the dollar amount, length of time, based
Okay.
on what state statute allows for this type of development.
Okay.
Yeah, this 500,000 is a number. I mean, I guess that, you know, it's what they want.
Well, I have a lot of
That's what they'd
questions,
like
but
to
I
get.
can't ask the questions until the next step, correct?
Probably true. If the,
I can't
I'm
ask
sure
any
that-
questions
Well, I don't know.
until the next step.
You can ask questions,
If-
but we may not be able to answer.
Right. If it's a I mean, if it's specific to dollar amounts and that
No,
sort
the
of thing.
question would be to the developer.
Well, how controversial is this going to be, Mr. Trost?
Very, very controversial, because I don't agree with this.
Okay, well, certainly, go ahead and ask. Why don't you clear it, why don't you kind of ask us, and then maybe
Well, is
Ms.
this,
Rosenfeld can
this
answer.
$500,000, is this gonna help the employees? Is it gonna help, I don't know what store is gonna be there, is that set in stone? It's gonna be Colburn's, I don't know, I have no idea.
Right. Just as the 500,000 is not set in stone.
I know that.
So we can't
But who does
refer
this
back to
help?
that.
Who does the $500,000 help? Is it gonna help the people that work there, or is it gonna help the store owner, or
Right.
who?
Who is that EDA? Who's EDA? Is that you, Mr. Lang? Okay, why don't you give us a little background on that conversation?
I wasn't there.
Oh,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
That's
okay.
why
Why don't you
I
give us
asked in January that we get all the EDA minutes from the park board and everybody else.
Right. Well, Ms. Underfirth, have you got something for us? Were you there?
There was some discussion where they were trying to get into the technicalities, but once it was made clear that this was strictly a stepping stone process as far as the nitty-gritty details were not to be decided at that meeting.
Right.
Once that was made clear, then they were left until our decision here is made.
Right, right. Which is what we're
And-
trying to
Which
do.
is essentially the same thing tonight. We're not here to iron out the nitty-gritty details of this. That's what staff and Ellers is for. We're here to say,
Yep.
sure, go ahead, apply for it. I mean, they're taking a chance either way.
Right, right. And I am interested in seeing the information. I don't think we can make a reasonable decision without it, so.
Mr. Mayor,
Unless there's, yep,
if I may interject, the applicant is here tonight, so if there's questions, you know, that are general questions that you want to ask them, I would recommend you do so.
well, it's a pretty straightforward request. I mean, you're asking us to decide whether or not it's worth them going forward and making this application.
So all the commissioners at EDA had no, they're all for it and they had no questions.
Well, I'm sure they had questions. Ms. Underfirth is probably.
The questions we had at EDA are gonna be more towards the questions of
I understand,
the job
but what-
requirements
but
and
what-
things like that. But once it was established that we were not there that night to hash out those details,
Okay.
they are waiting for that information to come back from Ellers and staff, because right now, this is just basic guesstimations on approximate numbers. It's not black and white.
Right.
It's not the final details, and we can't voice our questions, get honest answers without the final details.
If there are no more questions, I am going to call the question.
I guess there's one question I have, and that is, we talked about this previously, and that is, are we going to allow, this is where this comes, the actual subsidy in a situation where they are truly a competitor to a current, I mean, if we're gonna allow it, we're gonna be doing it again. To the next one that comes in. I'm just making sure that we understand that.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, there's no use in proceeding if we're saying, oh, down the road, well, we're not gonna allow it. That's not fair to them. Because of that, which we already know. I mean, that's something that we know. There's a competition here. And if we're gonna decide not to do that, then we shouldn't allow this to continue. I'm just making sure we understand
Yeah,
that.
well, there is the flip side of that, and that is that competition is good, and that, you know, I mean, we've had ourselves hoisted on this issue before. And I think that we owe it to the city, not to the developer or to the builder, but to the city to look at this and see if it's a good thing for the city. And for them to bring forward a proposal, we can say yea or nay at any point. We're not committing to anything here. We're just asking them for more information, and it's going to be expensive information, and we appreciate that. I'm of the opinion that we need to make a serious, hard look at this, and it's going to take a while, because this is a policy that we have hashed out again. I mean, every time there's a council change, we go through an opinion change as to whether or not we should offer TIF or abatement or whatever. And we have to look at it on the merits of the project and how many jobs it's going to bring and what kind of stimulation it's going to bring to the city, what's it going to do to the tax base, and what's the larger picture, the development of that corner. And I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Lang, and that is that we do have a family business in the city and in the room, for that matter, and it is going to have a direct impact on them. And I don't feel right about that, but we're kind of. This is what people have been asking for a long time, so here we are. If I'm going to quit making speeches here, yeah.
Just a thought, and that is that I can remember some years back when Emma Crumby's was coming to town. Every restaurateur in town was up at the council meeting that night claiming he was going to bankrupt them all. And here we are 25 years later, and I don't see any bankrupt restaurants. They're all still in pretty good shape, at least where they were then, they're still there now. And so I think it's something that